Well, welcome to Seint. Your makeup is either on the way or you've received it, and I'm going to go through exactly what we need to do to set up your palette and how to apply your makeup. So we're going to start by putting our makeup into our palettes. Now, my palette may look very different than yours. They come in all different sizes, all different designs. I'm working today with a palette number 18, and all our palettes are magnetized, so all our makeup goes right in there and is not going anywhere. Your makeup's going to arrive in a tin like this, and all you're going to do is slide that tin open, okay, and you're going to pop it right into your palette, just like so, okay? I recommend hanging on to the top, at least one, because that's how you're going to remove those tins from your palette as well. If you want to change to a new palette, whatever it may be. And all you're going to do is simply take that tin and you're going to slide it underneath, and that's how you remove your palettes. So there's no chance of gouging your fingers in that makeup, okay? So on the top, I'm going to keep all my creams. And on the second layer is where I'm going to keep eyeshadow and my setting powder, if you use setting powder. And that's just an eyeshadow cleaning tile that I use when I change shades. I just wipe my brush across it. So keep your creams on one level and your powders on the other, because goodness sakes, if you drop it and a powder breaks, you don't want it to get in with your cream makeup. But if you do drop a powder and it breaks, there's a way to fix it. So always ask me. I'll show you how to do that. So it depends now which brush you purchase to go with your makeup. Some folks will get the 3D brush solely. That's the only one they'll use. Others will get the blush and bronzer brush as well as the detailed brush. These two are my favorite. The 3D is also awesome and can do your entire face. So what I'm going to do today as I apply my makeup is I'm going to kind of work between all three of them. The results will be the same, but they just have different functions. All our brushes are double-ended, so you're getting two brushes for the price of one. Let's start with the 3D brush. We'll use this one to start off with to lay down my contour. Now, there's no wrong way or right way on where you start applying your makeup. I'm just going to show you a simple way if you're a beginner. And also, when it comes to laying out your palette colors, that's your choice as well. I like, and I think it's a good rule of thumb, is to lay them in there in the order in which you're going to apply them. So I have my contour, my main highlight. I happen to have a color corrector in there. You may or may not have that. And then I have my brightening shade, my bronzer. I have my cheek color that I'm going to use today, which is nude, which is super universal. And then I also put in a lip and cheek color in there that's in a gloss, because I prefer gloss on my lips. But nude could absolutely be used on your lips, and nude, any of our lip and cheeks for that matter, any satins can be used as an eyeshadow, so keep that in mind. So let's start with bronzer. No, let's start with contour. So I'm going to take that 3D brush. I'm going to use this side of it. One is like almost like a paintbrush, and one is a little fluffier. And I'm going to go into my palette, to my contour, and I'm just simply going to swipe and pick up some color, okay? And if you're using the 3D brush, when you apply your contour, I think it's a good rule to kind of squeeze that down a little bit, because it makes your contour, just the way it applies it is really nice in a nice line. If you use the detail brush, that brush is already set up for you like that, okay? So let's do this first. I'm going to start with my forehead. And I'm going to take that contour color and I'm going to run it back and forth on the top of my forehead, very close to my hairline, okay? I'm just kind of making a half moon shape. Now, depending on the size of your forehead, will determine how far you want to go down. If you have a larger forehead and you want to minimize that, you may bring that down a little bit. Okay? Also remember that this makeup is buildable. So you always can add, all right? So what I'm gonna do first is I'm simply gonna place this contour where it needs to go, and then we'll go back and we'll blend it. So now I'm gonna go down to my cheeks, and I'm gonna run this contour starting at the top of my ear and following it right at the base of my cheekbone, and I'm gonna stop at the outer edge of my eye. We're just gonna create a shadow or enhance a shadow to create cheekbones. So top of the ear, and I'm just running it down right at the base of my cheekbone there, and stopping, like I said, right at the edge of my eye. So I've laid that down. We're gonna go back and blend. Let's do the other side. Still using the 3D brush, top of the ear, and just running that right along the cheekbone, stopping at the edge of my eye, okay? So what are we doing? We are enhancing our bone structure and creating shadows, bringing definition to our faces. Now let's go down to our jawline. Our jaw starts behind the ear, and that's where I'm gonna start to lay down my contour. So I'm gonna place it right there, and I'm gonna run it underneath on the jawline. Now, I happen to have a jowl situation going on. So when I apply contour on the side of my face, I'm gonna start and I'm gonna stop here, not going into that little dimple area. If you don't have this situation, take it all the way, okay? But for me, I stop right there. Then I'm gonna take some more, and I'm gonna bring it right under my chin. I'm gonna take care of that lighted area that's all under all our chins where the sun doesn't hit you, okay? Now we're gonna take it on the other side, behind the ear, run it all the way down, okay? Now we're gonna go in and we're gonna blend what we've laid down. I think it's nice to start with contour because it kind of gives you a roadmap as to where everything else is gonna go, especially if you're new to Seint. Okay, so now we're gonna go up here, and I'm simply gonna kind of swirl, and I'm blending this out. You want to ensure that when you do your contour on your forehead, oh, excuse me, you want to make sure that you bring it up high enough into the hairline so you don't have that whiteness. If you have a little bit of a receding hairline like I do, it's nice to kind of camouflage it with this contour as well, okay? So that's blended out. There's no harsh line between that and the rest of my forehead, and that's what you want to strive for. And all blended, let's move down to our cheeks. Now, on your cheek contour, when you blend this, you want to blend it up. The ticket is, do not blend it away. You want it to be there, you just don't want any harsh line, okay? So I'm blending that up. Okay? Look how that just started to create a cheekbone. All right? Now let's go down here. When you come to your jaw, you are blending it down, tapping it, just tapping it. Think of stippling, like a stippling motion, okay? All right, so now that's done. The contour is laid down. Now I'm gonna go into my main shade, okay? This is the shade that most resembles your natural skin tone, okay? And I will use the same 3D brush, but now I'm gonna go to this side, and I'm gonna, when you go into your highlights, the consistency of these, your highlight colors and your bronzer, are a little bit different than your contour. Your contour is a little more waxy. And when you use your contour, you can swipe in there to bring out, to get it onto your brush. But when you talk about your highlights and your bronzer, the action is more of a tapping. You want to just kind of tap it in there to pick it up, okay? So I've got a little bit on my brush. Remember, Seint Cream makeup is highly pigmented. You need very little to get the job done. Okay, it is buildable. You can go back in, but I always recommend start off slow. So I'm now going to start to apply this everywhere that I don't have the contour, but nothing in my eyes. We're going to do something different there. So I'm simply going to go in here and I'm going to say it's a tapping, stippling motion to apply it as well. Okay? And I'm just going to go in here and start to put this everywhere except my eyes and where that contour was. That's what is so cool about Seint. In essence, it's one layer of makeup. You're not piling makeup on top of makeup like the old days with liquid and then blush on top of that and then maybe a concealer on top of that. This just gives you such a nice skin-like look. Okay, we're just going to continue to do that. And my main highlight does a very good job of covering up any discoloration that I have on my face. Just pouncing it, right? If you received a color corrector, you can do that a couple of different ways in terms of when to apply it. You can apply it at the end, or you could do it ahead of this step and just minimize any discoloration. But often, depending on the situation, often your main highlight will do it for you. If it doesn't, then we can talk, okay? So that is laid down. It's minimized any redness that I had, and we're good to go. Now, let's tackle this eye situation. I'm gonna go in for that with my detail brush, okay? This is a great brush for contour, and I like this end because I like the smallness of this for my eyes. If you could certainly use this too, okay? But I'm gonna do it this way for demonstration purposes. So, I have extremely discolored eyelids. I also like to wear eyeshadow. You do not need a separate primer on your eyelids to apply eyeshadow. It's right here in your palette. I combine my brightening highlight with my main highlight. So in other words, here's my main highlight that I just put all over my face. I'm gonna dip into that and dip into my brightness. This color, my main highlight, is gonna help diffuse some of the redness, and then my brightening highlight works that way too, but it gives a little more brightness to the eyes. So I just simply go like this. I tap in here, and I tap in here. And now I'm gonna go in here and stipple this color on. This is priming my eyes for my eyeshadow. I recommend always priming your eyes before you put on eyeshadow. Not only is it going to help me in terms of discoloration, but I also have hooded eyes, a lot of loose skin, and by priming them, you're gonna have a better result with your eyeshadow staying, okay? So look at the difference right there, how that just did it, and I've got a nice clean canvas to apply my eyeshadow. All right. Now before I move on to my under eyes, because Seint Makeup is cream, we need to set it. It's not like liquid makeup, it's not like powdered makeup that always dries and sets itself. Cream just sits on your face. So those eyelids I want to set before I go in with my makeup, my eyeshadow. So I'm gonna take some setting powder, Seint setting powder, and I'm gonna simply do this. Now, if you don't have Seint setting powder, that's fine. You could use many women will use, we have a shade called Cupcake, an eyeshadow called Cupcake that looks same, almost the same color as our setting powder, and they set the cream with that as well. But you want to set it, okay, in some form. I mean, our powdered, our eyeshadows are powder, that would work as well. I'm just always in the habit of doing it this way, okay? So, next, let's go in to start to tackle those under eyes. Now, mature eyes, the name of the game is little product. You do not want caking, creasing under there. You will only have creasing with Seint Makeup if you use too much. And that's the big learning curve, okay? If you use too much. So for my situation, I've got discoloration, I've got light, I've got dark, I've got some redness. And I'm gonna go in and do a combination of things. I am going to use my main highlight that I put all over my face, and I'm also going to use my brightener. And I put that in strategic spots. I'm going to continue using my detail brush. I'm going to go in with my brightening highlight first. And I'm going to place that right here. Just a little bit. And I'm going to place it out here on the outer corner. This is where mature women, we can get a little dark, but we don't want too much brightness because we don't want that brightness to shine a spotlight, if you will, on the texture that we also have down there. Okay, so inner and outer corner with the brightest shade in my palette. Now I'm going to go in with my main highlight, and I like to dab a little bit of that right here just to kind of neutralize the discoloration. Now, not all under eyes are created equal. Okay, so you will find what works best for you. If you have if you find that the colors that you have aren't quite cutting it, then we can talk about it. So, using that same brush, now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to patting it very lightly just to blend that out. And that tiny little makeup did the trick. So little is being used. That way we know it's not going to crease and it's not going to add any additional texture or shine a spotlight on that texture that I already have. Very light application. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and get some warmth back into the skin, okay? And that's where our bronzer comes in. You could use this end of your 3D brush if you have the blush and bronzer, the big fluffy end, and I think I'm going to grab that one now. So I'm going to go into my bronzer, and I'm simply going to tap, and I'm going to place bronzer in the highest parts of my face, where the sun would naturally kiss your face. So we're going to start above my brow, and I'm just kind of tapping. I'm going to bring that down over my cheek. I'm going to bring it across the bridge of my nose, and I'm going to bring it up here, almost like a big C, right? Now I'm also going to run that bronzer down here. All right, so there's that. Last step. Now we're going to get some color in this space. I'm going to take my 3D brush, that rounder end, and I'm going to tap it into the colored nude, which is our satin, and I'm just going to tap it in there. Okay, got a little on my brush, and I am simply going to stamp that on my cheek. Don't worry if something like that happens, because we have a way to fix that. I picked up a lot of product, and that's going to happen from time to time as you're learning. I'm not learning, but it still happens. Okay? just going to add a little bit of color. Okay, now how am I going to fix that? Let me just wipe off a little of that brush. I've got a little paper toweling here. If you ever get a little too much on your brush, as you're switching between colors, you can just rub a little like that. Continue to try to blend that out. If I still have too much, we can fix that easily. Okay. Now, at this stage of the game, before I go in to set that, I'm going to grab my Perfector sponge. This is an Essence of Beauty Blender. Saints is amazing. How did I prepare this? I went and I ran it under water. It almost triples, quadruples in size from what it looks like when it arrives. I squeeze out all the excess water, and then I'll go into with a paper toweling and I'll put it in there and I'll squeeze it out and get as much water out of there as I can. Then what we're going to do is we're going to dab this all over your face to get rid of any excess makeup that you may have laid down, okay? And you're simply going to pounce it. It's also going to work as an extra blend step. And in this area, that is going to help me remove any extra blush that I laid down. Your cheeks naturally can get red too as you pounce on it. So don't worry about that. It will calm down, if you will. So I'm simply dabbing, and I use such little product that very little is coming off onto that sponge. Last step for setting this face. I'm using Seint setting spray. Any setting spray will work. I recommend a setting spray if you are on the drier side. If you're on the oilier side, then you can simply set your makeup with our setting powder or a setting powder of your choice. You can also do a combination of the both, okay? Now, to set it a couple of different ways. You're gonna find the way that works best for you. You can simply spray your face and let it dry. You can spray your Perfector sponge and apply it. I do it this way. I take my palm of my hand and I spray a little bit in there, like 2 pumps. That way I'm using less setting spray, and it gets right onto my sponge. Now, all I'm gonna do is simply do this. And I am gonna tap this all over my face, and this makeup is going nowhere. All day long. I do not have to carry my makeup with me. It stays. Okay. Now I'm going to put a little lip color on. I'm going to go into that gloss color that I used, or that I put in my palette right there. And I'm simply going to apply that with my finger. Just to finish the look. I'll go in and do my eyes. Add a little shadow, a little mascara, and that's it. And then I am done. The whole process, start to finish, once you have it down, is less than 10 minutes. Just be patient with yourself. It's different than anything else that you've ever used. Less is more. If you have any questions, I am here. Please send me a message. But more importantly, have fun.